Just now, Hugh used Blood Eye to make Jane faint. He didn't expect Juliet to lead her followers to rush out halfway. She directly used the puppet ability to control Jane. Juliet directly controlled her puppet to attack Hugh. Upon seeing this, Hugh not only did not feel afraid but also smiled calmly. Hugh then triggered the eerie power contained in Scalpel. Suddenly, numerous eerie powers transformed into dark energy and appeared. Hugh directly absorbed all the eerie power into his body. He suppressed a horrifying laughter that squeezed out from his throat. At this moment, he seemed to have completely transformed, covered in dark energy all over his body. Within the dark energy, countless bizarre shadows faintly coalesced. His right eye gleamed with a crimson radiance. The former calmness has turned into complete madness today. Hugh burst into a wild laughter, saying, "How can I lose like this?" Witnessing this scene, Juliet was instantly shocked and turned pale. He actually allowed such a huge, chaotic eerie power to enter his body. Is he planning on self-destruction? He is just a madman. Quickly, go and get him. Kill him. However, it was already too late. Accompanied by terrifying laughter, Hugh grasped the shiny scalpel, ready to strike. The next second, Hugh disappeared from the spot like a ghost, leaving behind only a bloody silhouette of the knife. When Hugh arrived on the other side of the battlefield, dozens of wicked slaves died instantly. Heads rolled to the ground one after another. Immediately, Hugh used his foot to hook up 2 pieces of gravel. He forcefully kicked the gravel forward with one swift motion. The 2 tourists were directly kicked in the head and exploded by Hugh's immense strength. At this moment, the black-robed man has already arrived by Hugh's side, preparing to launch an attack. Hugh reacted instantly. He directly slashed with his knife. At that moment, the black-robed man was directly killed by Hugh's slash. Juliet was shocked to see this, her face looking very unpleasant. Metal Slave's spirit was lit up 15% by the Spirit Master ability. I spent a lot of effort on him for the metal skin. Hugh casually killed him with a wave of his hand. At this moment, Hugh was like a lightning bolt. He quickly rushed towards Juliet's direction. Just then, Jane joined the battlefield. In an instant, millions of silver hairs converged into a conical silver spike and thrust towards Hugh. Suddenly, Hugh's right eye shone brightly with blood. He swept out with a single stroke. Surprisingly easily, he blocked the huge silver conical spike tens of meters long. Juliet was completely stunned, with an incredulous look on her face. This is impossible. Just a mere first-stage spirit master. Shouldn't he have distorted immediately when he can trigger such a powerful eerie power? Why hasn't he distorted yet? At this moment, Hugh made a move. He fiercely waved the scalpel in his hand and chopped off all of the silver hair. In no time, the silver strands scattered all over the ground. At this moment, Hugh had a twisted and excited grin on his face. Too weak, all too weak. Why can't they let me have more pleasure? Faced with the terrifying strength of Hugh, Juliet actually kneeled down and seduced Hugh to beg him to spare her. Just because Hugh solved Metal Slave with one slash. He also killed second-stage Spirit Master Jane, who possessed bizarre power. Just now, Hugh triggered the eerie power within the scalpel. Hugh absorbs countless eerie power, causing a rampage of darkening. He directly kills Juliet's puppet Metal Slave with a single strike of his sword. Juliet is extremely frightened upon seeing this situation. Hugh faces the second-stage Spirit Master's attack with Jane's silver hair. He skillfully cuts them all off at once. Hugh is even more excited and ecstatic. He laughs out loud, saying, "Why not make me even happier?" Jane is provoked. Suddenly, her body bursts with intense spiritual fluctuations. She directly mobilizes all the water from the Dark Water River. The next second, countless river waters converge. Stretching nearly 100 meters, it resembles an angry roaring water dragon. It rushes towards Hugh. However, Hugh, upon seeing this, not only is not afraid but instead joyfully laughs out loud. The next moment, his figure turned into a ghostly one, and he dashed towards the water dragon. Hugh dodged the impact of the water dragon with his agility. He kept moving forward without stopping, launching a relentless attack all the way and overcoming all obstacles as he rushed towards Jane. Since Jane had turned into a puppet at this point, there was no hint of expression on her face. However, Juliet in the distance was almost scared silly. Metal Slave was taken down by him in one swipe. Not to mention, if the physical body of Jane dies, I am also in danger. Just as Hugh was closing in frantically, Juliet made her move. Countless silver threads flew towards Hugh. Hugh dodged all the flying daggers that Juliet shot, which landed on the ground. Seeing this, Hugh couldn't help but mock. Is this the best a second stage spirit master can do? It seems like the 200 spirit coins I spent on that killer were in vain. As Hugh continued to move, dodging countless flying daggers, they all missed and landed on the ground. The battlefield, originally extremely dangerous, at this moment, seemed to have transformed into a stage for Hugh's personal solo dance. At this moment, Hugh made an abrupt break and adjusted direction. In the moonlight, Hugh, holding the scalpel, directly arrived above Jane. Unable to resist, Hugh mocked. Too slow. Your attacks are just too slow. Juliet was shocked when she saw the scene and exclaimed, No! However, Hugh appeared behind Jane like a ghost. A scalpel was held against her neck. The next second, Hugh cut through the other person's neck with one stroke. Countless blood gushed out instantly. Jane spat out blood from her mouth. Her body collapsed with a bang. At this moment, Hugh became confused. Why didn't Jane scream in pain or agony? The next second, Hugh seemed to think of something. He turned his head and looked at Juliet, staring at her with his eerie blood eye. I got it. Because you turned her into a puppet. So, you will have to experience the pain for her. At this moment, Juliet had already been scared back repeatedly. It turned out that Hugh had been waiting for me to show up. Then he caught us all in one fell swoop. Only, why can he absorb such a large amount of eerie power and still remain rational without any distortion happening? Hugh at this time is like an evil spirit returned from hell. Looking at Juliet, he said, Aren't you going to run? Juliet's face was pale at this time. She said, With your speed, I wouldn't be able to escape at all. But Juliet was thinking at this moment, no man can resist a charming beauty's submission and vulnerability. With a thud, Juliet's slender and fair legs folded in an instant, and she knelt directly on the ground. Her charming face was filled with a pitiful fear, with eyes reddened and glistening tears falling. She said pleadingly, Please don't kill me. But in her heart, she wondered, will this man be different from all the men I've encountered before? Will he spare me? This woman actually tried to seduce the man before she died, begging him to spare her. However, the man felt that this woman's eyes looked too much like his own wife's. Without hesitation, he decisively cut off the woman's neck with one stroke. Just now, Hugh absorbed all the eerie power darkening rampage. Just one glance. He killed Juliet's strongest puppet, Jane. Jane died. Hugh then began to have ideas about Juliet. Juliet was so scared that she immediately knelt down to Hugh. She put on a pitiful look, indicating that as long as he spared her, she was willing to be Hugh's slave and do anything. I also came here on Chief's orders. If I didn't come, he would. However, before she could finish speaking, Hugh interrupted her. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I just want to transfer my pain into your body. That's all. Upon hearing this, Juliet was slightly taken aback. Pain transferred into my body. Is this some new online jargon? A new way of playing? Looks interesting. Juliet immediately raised her head high, revealing a fair neck. She sexily said, As long as you don't kill me, you can do whatever you want to me. Hugh, upon hearing this, took out a scalpel. The smile on his face became even more sinister. This is what you said, he said. Juliet was suddenly scared and cried. She realized she had misunderstood. The pain she injected was not the kind of meaning she had in mind. At this moment, Hugh's scalpel had already reached her neck. Juliet was suddenly horrified. No, please. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have hurt you. I'm willing to be your slave. Please spare me. I promise to make you feel unprecedented joy. I'll do anything. I will definitely satisfy you. You can try me first if you don't believe it. You can kill me anytime if you're not satisfied. As she spoke, Juliet even stuck out her tongue to lick Hugh's hand. She locked eyes with Hugh with her autumn-like gaze, filled with tenderness and charm. Many men have said, "The most enchanting part of me is my eyes." Not a single one of them could resist it. I believe Hugh is no exception. However, at this moment, Hugh remembered his own wife. Hugh stared straight at Juliet. At this moment, Hugh reached out and gently caressed Juliet's cheek. Eyes like, just two alike. Juliet's heart leaped with joy in an instant. She continued to launch an eye attack. Do my eyes resemble someone? However, she thought to herself whether she was his childhood sweetheart, ex-girlfriend, or wife. Indeed, no matter how special a man may be, it all boils down to this. Hugh said, Your eyes really resemble my wife's. Juliet continued, Then I can be her stand-in. You can do all the things that husbands and wives do with me. I can even satisfy your desires better than she can. The next second, Hugh showed a grim and terrifying expression full of hatred. He said, So you should die. He then forcefully stabbed the scalpel into Juliet's neck. Juliet's pupils involuntarily contracted. Her mind became instantly disoriented. Juliet, who was lying on the ground, couldn't figure it out. Why did her eyes look like Hugh's wife's and cause so much hatred between them? Why couldn't they let go of each other despite their animosity? Indeed, not a single man is a good thing. At this moment, countless powers of pain surged into Juliet's body. In the end, Juliet was tortured to death by the power of pain. Hugh looked at Juliet with a smile on his face. You seem to have remembered something painful, but your misery has nothing to do with me. Because the one who kills shall be killed, meeting a brutal end. You just enjoy my pain. At this moment, Hugh looks at the scalpel in his hand. She's really dirty, or the killing bizarreness is clean. Suddenly, Hugh heard a strange noise. Jane's silver hair suddenly fell off on its own. It then swiftly crawled on the ground like a spider, getting ready to escape. Sarah's hair was shaved into a crew cut by Hugh. Hugh got a new skin for Hair Wraith, white-haired psychopath. Just now, Juliet seduced Hugh in order to survive, willing to be Hugh's slave. Hugh stared straight at Juliet. He felt that her eyes were too much like his wife's. He then directly killed Juliet the next second. Juliet never figured it out until she died. Why did she, whose eyes resembled his wife's, get killed? Just after Hugh solved Juliet's problem, he suddenly heard a strange noise behind him. It turned out to be the hair wraith detaching from Jane's body, getting ready to escape. Hugh suddenly rushed out. Do you think you can escape? At this moment, Hugh was like a hunter who had found his prey. Who would have expected that Silver Hair would charge straight towards Sarah lying in the mud pit? With a whoosh, Silver Hair came directly above Sarah's head. The next second, it directly possessed Sarah's original hair. Hugh instinctively became alert when he saw this. Silver Hair attached to Sarah's hair. Like dying, her original hair unexpectedly turned silver. The originally unconscious Sarah actually opened her eyes strangely. A hint of confusion flashed in her eyes. Then her gaze became filled with killing intent, hatred, and anger. However, Hugh took advantage of Sarah's possession. He instantly appeared behind her like a ghost. Hugh slapped Sarah across the face, interrupting her spell casting directly. The slap he just delivered was infused with the power of pain, causing Sarah's eyes to roll back as she once again slumped unconscious. Hugh was using a scalpel to cut off those silver hairs, thinking to himself that only the roots had not been infected. A while later, Sarah was shaved bald by Hugh. The original silver hair was nowhere to be seen. Silver Hair was in action. It wriggled crazily like a living octopus, its strands continuously wrapping around Hugh's arms. Hugh couldn't help but laugh. "Do you want to take refuge in me?" he asked. "Then as you wish." The next moment, those silver hair strands began to crawl up onto Hugh's head. Before long, Hugh's original black hair disappeared. In its place was a head of silver white hair. Soon after, Hugh felt a strange evil aura. It began to invade his spirituality, seemingly trying to distort it. Immediately, Hugh took control of his spirituality, counter-infecting the silver hair that had come into contact with his spirituality. Instantly, it felt scared. It sensed the power of pain within, like a great terror. Accompanied by a cold snort from Hugh, the silver hair instantly receded, rapidly shortening and fitting incredibly well. It eventually turned into Hugh's original hairstyle. He finally dealt with all the enemies. Hugh stood with his hands in his pockets. The next second, blood vessels on his face suddenly burst. Hugh's entire body skin suddenly burst with bright red blood, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking. However, this kind of pain could not make any difference to Hugh at all. He remained as calm as water, as if nothing had happened. Hugh's body could no longer support him, and he fell straight to the ground. But just as his body was only 10 centimeters from the ground, Hugh's body unexpectedly stopped. Hugh's expression remained calm, as if he had anticipated this outcome. "Get up!" Hugh ordered directly. After the big battle, Sarah woke up to find that her long hair had been cut short. She completely fell apart. She couldn't face anyone. Just now, hair wraith possessed Sarah, trying to control her. Hugh directly slapped Sarah unconscious, interrupted the spell. Afterwards, Hugh voluntarily allowed the hair wraith to parasitize on himself. Hugh successfully got a new skin, white-haired psychopath. Just then, Hugh's blood vessels burst all over his body. He was covered in blood. He was about to collapse. At that moment, when his face was only a few centimeters away from the ground, Hugh stopped. He said directly, "Get up." Hugh's body stood up straight unexpectedly. Countless delicate strands of hair were wrapped around his body. It turns out that Hugh controlled his body through the ability called silver hair. Hugh controlled those silver hairs to pierce fiercely into his body. Then he started to repair the wounds and damaged blood vessels. While repairing his heart, Hugh thought to himself, "The eerie power within the scalpel is too powerful. It has caused great harm to my spirituality and body." After retracting the power, he could clearly feel that he was now completely devoid of combat power. At this point, the injuries that were originally bleeding all over his body stopped. Some small wounds also began to heal slowly. Obviously, Hugh's decision was right. Waiting for Juliet to appear and revealing the trump card only to be possessed by the hair wraith. It can help Hugh control and repair his body. Hugh, who has fully recovered, looks at the aftermath of the great battle. The bodies left on the ground are a mess. Hugh couldn't help but click his tongue. He is ready to clean up the battlefield and collect the spoils of war. He is controlling silver hair to go to Juliet and search the bodies. He directly took away the flying dagger made for her by Heart of Steel. Then he controlled silver hair to go over to those two tourists. Took the bag away. Hugh took away all the usable loot. Countless silver hairs danced around him. Mission accomplished. Send someone to Darkwater Village to pick us up. Also need to bring medical personnel. First, find Dennis. Where did that kid get beaten up to? Probably not seriously injured. With his physical abilities when transforming, Sarah might not even be able to beat him. He has a chance to challenge opponents above his level. He quickly found Dennis and controlled silver hair to move the trees that were pressing on him away. Dennis was so moved that he was in tears and snot. "Hugh, you're amazing. I knew you would come to rescue me." "Hugh, I'm just..." He was cut off by Hugh before he could finish speaking. Don't say things that are not conducive to unity. Looking at the Dennis in front of him, Hugh couldn't help but think how he had called for Hugh to save him during the day. As soon as midnight arrived, is this really the same person? Then Hugh raised his hand to slap Sarah, but she was already knocked unconscious by the pain of my painful ability. She won't die. Lucas lost too much blood. It can be considered as losing weight. Then he slapped the other person awake. The two people who were slapped awake couldn't help but touch their faces. Sarah, who felt pain, instantly became angry. She said, "Blame you! Can't you be more gentle when you act?" At this moment, Lucas and the other person looked at Sarah with incredulity and said, "Your hair." "What's wrong with my hair? It's just a bit dirty." But in her heart she thought, "I must look very disheveled now. Who asked you to say it out loud?" When Sarah touched her hair, her face instantly looked unpleasant. She looked devastated as she hugged her head and loudly exclaimed, "Where is my hair?" Hugh immediately blamed Silver Hair, saying, "It ain't your hair." Sarah covered her face with both hands and started to cry in sadness. At this moment, Fatty comforted Sarah, saying, "You still look great without hair. Many people with hair are not as pretty as you without it. And it's a good thing not to have hair anyway. It saves you from having to wash it every day." Sarah threw a flame ball backhandedly to shut the other party up. Fatty remained speechless, saying, "I was just trying to comfort you, and you hit me." At this moment, Hugh chimed in and asked, "Fatty, how far did you teleport just now?" Upon hearing this, Fatty was taken aback. "I just teleported 1 meter. Spirituality light up by 5%. Level B's bizarreness turns out to be so good." Then he asked Hugh about their light-up situation. Hugh directly said 5%. Increased by 5%. In other words, my spirituality has now light up 10%. The current Hugh is also a senior spirit master. Hugh gained powerful strength in the battle this time. He returned home to test his wife's power once again. As expected, Hugh was defeated by his own wife again. Just after the battle ended, Hugh reaped numerous spoils of war. Waking up, Sarah found that her hair had become very short. She instantly felt devastated. Lucas made a surprising discovery. His spirituality had been elevated. Hugh has already lit up 10%. Now he is a senior spirit master. Hugh immediately activated the ability of Silver Hair. He could clearly feel it. The potential of his body has been further developed. His 5 senses are also more acute. But more importantly, he has a greater reserve of spirituality. This is used to sustain the durability of his abilities. Hugh is exploring his own spirituality. In this battle, he actually lit up 5% of his spirituality. Fatty and Dennis contributed as well, increasing their spirituality by 3% and 4% respectively. But when I used the Eerie Power and Scalpel, I gained the possession of Level B Hair Wraith. Hugh is observing his own spirituality. He frowned. He discovered that with the blessing of the two, it only increased by 5%. This means that the same amount of mysterious aura erodes spirituality. Only I obtained the smallest percentage. Perhaps it's because I have experienced countless deaths that have transformed my spirituality. It has surpassed the realm of ordinary people. However, all this is thanks to my wife. At the thought of this, Hugh couldn't help but unleash the ability of Silver Hair. Is he going to use the power of bizarreness to deal with bizarreness? What will happen when his spirituality light up 100% as his strength grows? Is the end of a spirit master bizarre? If this is the truth about spirit masters, it's just too despairing for humans. Hugh returned home. His wife started welcoming him, but Hugh thought to himself, "The first person I saw after crossing over into this world was you." Then Hugh couldn't help but smile and said, "Some things just have to be tried, right, my dear?" Then his wife couldn't help but smile too. "You can see me, right?" I only saw the wife transform into a bizarre look, opening a huge bloody mouth. Immediately, Hugh's full ability was activated. He used all his spirituality, saying the first bizarre one to kill me is you. And I will become the way I am now, all thanks to you. After saying that, Hugh rushed towards his wife. Hugh stabbed directly at his wife's chest. Hugh saw the attack was effective. He couldn't help but smile with excitement. The injured wife staggered back slightly. Hugh couldn't help but laugh even more excitedly when he saw this. He said, "Go to hell." The next second, Hugh suddenly froze. All of a sudden, a strong and eerie power burst out from his wife's body. Hugh's hand was directly swallowed into his wife's body. He is almost completely swallowed by his wife, merging into her body. Hugh couldn't help but curse. "Damn it! I don't care what bizarreness is. I don't care who bizarreness is. I only know that between me and bizarreness, only one of us can survive." At this moment, the wife laughed excitedly and said, "Honey, merge into my body." As expected, Hugh died and was reborn again. Hugh once again saw his wife, thinking to himself, "I, who have traveled through time, possess the death rollback ability, so I will never die. It will only be you who die, my dear wife." Hugh, back at home, eats his meal while thinking to himself, "Even if the Spirit Master's ultimate goal is bizarreness, even if I can't kill you now, but one day I will make you kneel at my feet, wail, and beg for mercy." Immediately, his gaze gradually drifted towards the window. Outside the window, there were still countless bizarreness roaming the streets. Hugh swears to make his wife experience all the pains that all the bizarreness in the world has brought to him. After a great war, Hugh successfully tamed the hare wraith. Lucas excitedly discovered that his spirituality increased by 5%. Hugh's spirituality, combined with what he gained after the great battle, has reached 10%, propelling him into the ranks of senior spirit masters. Dennis excitedly discovered that his spirituality has reached 5%. Thaddy was slightly surprised. Soon after, he quickly became relieved. After all, Dennis transformed at that time and battled head-on for a long time. So it's normal for him to only increase from 1% to 5%. Later, Dennis and Lucas started bragging. Dennis bragged that he was unbeatable at midnight. Lucas boasted about having unlimited teleportation ability. The more they bragged, the more excited they became. In the end, they even disregarded their captain, Joseph. Dennis is shamelessly boasting, "It's not me bragging. When it really gets to midnight, I'll be invincible." However, Hugh looked at the two boasting in front of him, feeling speechless. Next, Hugh slowly communicated about the time when he controlled the hare wraith he had subdued before. He faintly sensed some vague memory fragments from within the hare wraith's body, but he didn't have time back then, so he never looked into it. The memory fragments were then absorbed into Hugh's own heart. Hugh saw Jane during the black hair period, and saw her playing and frolicking with a beautiful woman. In the end, he saw this beautiful woman being forced by the villagers to jump into the river and commit suicide. At that time, Jane's parents had passed away, and she also had a large birthmark on her face, making her unattractive. As a result, she had been discriminated against since childhood, with hardly any peers willing to play with her. Until a beautiful woman arrived. Jane gradually opened up her heart. The beautiful woman is the female corpse at the bottom of the river named Nina. Nina at the time was kidnapped and given to Zane, the grandson of the village chief, as a wife. After she arrived at Darkwater Village, she suffered a lot. She tried to escape many times, but was always caught and abused when brought back. However, she never gave up. It was because she never gave up that she was ostracized by others. By a fortunate coincidence, Nina and Jane became good friends. One day, Nina suddenly told Jane that she had figured out the escape route and asked Jane to set fire while she escaped in order to attract the villagers' attention. Jane asked why she had to escape. Nina just talked about the outside of the mountain. There are her family and friends. So she wants to escape. However, just before she escaped, Jane changed her mind. She told the village chief about the escape plan. Jane's idea was simple. She didn't want to lose Nina as a friend. She only wanted to keep Nina by her side forever. Soon after, a group of villagers quickly found Nina. Nina was very desperate. She knew that it was her friend Jane who had betrayed her. So she couldn't hold on any longer. She chose to jump into the Darkwater River to end her life. When Jane learned the news of Nina's suicide, tears streamed down her face. She couldn't make sense of it no matter how hard she tried. Jane's distorted spirituality successfully caught the attention of the Hare Wraith, and she became its host. Afterward, Jane slaughtered all the villagers in Darkwater Village because she believed they were the ones who killed her friend. In the end, feeling lonely, she turned those villagers into wicked slaves to accompany herself. Hugh saw this scene and couldn't help but smile. He found it very interesting. Hugh accesses the memories of the Hare Wraith. He learned about Jane's memories before she became a spirit master. At the same time, he also learned the identity of the female corpse from the river, which was Nina. Hugh and the others waited for the rescue team from the Investigation Bureau. They successfully left Darkwater Village. At the Investigation Bureau, Jose heard the report from his subordinates and was visibly shocked. What? You're saying they are all seriously injured? What about Hugh? Is he okay? After hearing that Hugh was unharmed, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Then he asked directly what was going on. Led by Sarah, a senior spirit master, the team executed a Level D mission, yet everyone got injured. His subordinates looked embarrassed. The specific situation is still under investigation. They are receiving treatment. The only one who suffered minor injuries is Sarah. She is physically fine. But it seems that her spirituality has been significantly affected. She hurried home. Jose's expression turned serious after hearing that. Sarah is a senior investigator who has experienced multiple bizarre incidents. Even she has suffered a spiritual trauma. This incident is probably very serious. The subordinate hesitantly said, "This may not be related to the bizarre incidents. The main issue is that Sarah's hair seems to be missing." Jose was instantly dumbfounded. What do you mean Sarah is bald? How could she suddenly be bald out of nowhere? The next day arrived. Hugh came to Jose's office. He talked about Jane, Hare Wraith, and the puppeteer Juliet. Jose's face showed a touch of anger after hearing this. People from the Light Club. How dare they openly target the Investigation Bureau? What are they up to? Are they trying to rebel? However, Hugh continued, "It was me who first robbed them of their mystic artifact and killed one of their core members. And during the battle at that time, I wielded the power of the mystic artifact." Jose looked worried after hearing that. He promised to give Hugh 2 sticks of spirit incense. In no time, Hugh received 2 sticks of spirit incense, along with 3,000 spirit coins. Hugh looked at the rewards, pondering. With this money, he can buy Chief's Light Club.